everyone. This is Don Larson speaking, the CEO of Larson Software Technology. Welcome to our webinar this morning, or this, I guess it's afternoon for some of you and early morning for some of you, I see. Our webinar today is going to be the product launch of VisXView HTML5 viewer. Before we get started, just some quick notes on the procedures that we use. All attendees are going to be muted for the duration of the webinar. If you should have any problems or difficulties, use the little chat window we show off to the right in your webinar panel. And I was going to draw your attention to, there's a handout on the product that we're going to be demonstrating today that you can actually drag and drop the PDF there. You can see the little PDF symbol. You can drag and drop it. So we welcome you to download a copy of that. Questions will be answered following the main presentation, or if we don't get them all, we assure you we'll follow up with an email to you. We're going to have a interactive poll at a certain point in the presentation. It's private, easy to do, so we encourage you to do that. Give us, so we have some feedback. And so I've covered that. Yeah, the interactive polls, these are private and anonymous. And today's poll is going to be, does your organization currently use a viewer? And if so, which viewer are you using? An overview of what we're going to be covering today, some of the technical subjects, the computer graphics meta file, an ISO standard that's been around since 1987 for composite or vector and raster picture definition, hypertext markup language, HTML5, which is the new technology from W3C, a framework that's designed to foster innovation and develop the full potential that the web has to offer. And then the third technical subject is going to be the web graphics library, a JavaScript for rendering 2D and 3D graphics inside a web browser without plugins. And then we'll also, the product launch is going to be in 3 sections. We're going to cover the status quo, how viewing is done today with Cgms with plugin technology, and then we're going to have our actual product demo of the new product, and then we'll wrap up and summarize the benefits of this new technology. So this takes us to our poll. We're going to post it. You should see on your screen in a moment. The poll should appear. Okay, you should be seeing a poll. And we encourage you to vote. Tell us which viewer you're using today. Again, this is all anonymous, but when we get done, when I've got a good percentage there, we'll pop up the results for everyone. Okay, looks like the voting has slowed down here, so we'll go ahead and close that poll, and I'll share that for you. So you should all be seeing the results of that poll there. And so probably no surprise, ISOView is the most widely used viewer, and then 26 other. That's interesting. So good information there. Okay, so onto the background. Cgm, as you all know, I'm sure, but I'm just going to recap. you probably all know about CGM, or you wouldn't be in this webinar. But CGM, computer graphics monofile, a 2D standard, non-owned, non-proprietary, managed by the Cgm Open Foundation, which is a consortium of users, users being big, typically manufacturers or products that use CGM technology, and software developer, systems people, technical people that are involved in helping to design and maintain the Cgm Open Cgm format. The Cgm format first appeared in actually the late 80s and is a format that's widely supported by many graphics applications, editors. Most CAD systems support it. And later, a web CGM profile was developed. It's developed by the W3. Oh, I've just had a note here to close the poll. Sorry, little operator error there. So again, yeah, that's the background on CGM. The web CGM profile was developed specifically in W3C and was done by members of technical members of Cgm Open. The web CGM is an enhancement to CGM for web delivery, and it was subsequently adopted by the S1000D and is part of the S1000D standard for the preferred method for developing or delivering vector graphics. You can read more about WebCGM at W3C webpage. I've got the link there if you're interested. Okay, and the next subject I want to cover is the Html5 standard. We hear a lot about it today. Hypertext markup language, Html5, is an enhancement to HTML. It's a core technology for structuring and presenting content on the World Wide Web. Again, it's like CGM, it's non-owned, non-proprietary. CGM added many, or HTML added many syntactic features, which include video, audio, canvas elements for basic 2D graphics, and also added SVG. The SVG graphics format is also part of HTML5. The new features are primarily designed to enable multimedia delivery over the web without using plugins, and that's a key component of it. HTML5 also introduced several application programming interfaces for complex web applications. Those are JavaScript, commonly referred to as JavaScript interfaces. So HTML5 added several, one of them which was the WebGL. And lastly, HTML5 was designed to work independently or to be device independent, so it could work on a broad array of devices, from PCs and workstations, Linux workstations, smartphones, tablets, virtually any computing device. So that is important. Next subject is WebGL. As I said before, WebGL is part of HTML5. It's a JavaScript API for rendering 3D and 2D graphics. The WebGL is based on OpenGL. OpenGL is a programming language for interactive 2D, 3D graphics. OpenGL and WebGL is designed and maintained by the nonprofit Cronus Group. Cronus Group is a very large organization. It has over 100 members and is anchored by some well-known technology companies, Apple, NVIDIA, Intel, important, but it also has other notable members like Microsoft and Google, Adobe, pretty much anybody has to do anything with graphics hardware or software. WebGL is completely integrated into the HTML web standards. This permitted GPU its acceleration of graphics, which is nice. That means they'll be faster, and as the hardware GPUs evolve, it'll get even faster. Again, no plugin is required, just like HTML5. No plugin is required to use WebGL. It's integrated right into your browser. And it's supported by all of the modern browsers, and I'm showing them all there, i.e. Chrome, Firefox, Safari both on iOS and Mac, and Opera, the lesser known of the browsers, but it's supported on those, and it'll also be supported on the Microsoft's new browser, which I guess is now called Edge. So anyway, the support for WebGL is really pervasive, and that's a good thing. So what's the status quo today? The status quo for viewing CGM depends on the ActiveX frameworks. ActiveX is a software framework that was created by Microsoft for extending the browser. In other words, a way to do graphics inside a browser in HTML pages. So that was a Microsoft technology, ActiveX. There's also an analogous technology that's plugin technology that can be used in Firefox and Chrome, and it's called the Netscape plugin, but it's essentially very much like ActiveX technology. It's a way to extend the browser, and but Microsoft is ActiveX is most widely used. So the Cgm plugin. Cgm has an excellent reputation as a 2D graphics format, but the major weakness all along has been the deployment of Cgm in electronic format over the web, in Illustrative parts catalogs, IETPs, and that's because the plugin technology is always required to just achieve this distribution. And so why is plugin technology a weakness? Well, first of all, it's got to be installed on each target computer on that you want to view a CGM on inside Internet Explorer, and that can be a huge problem, especially if you've got thousands of users of your Illustrative parts catalog, for instance. Each workstation would have to install a copy of that. So that's a huge problem. Also, ActiveX has been strongly criticized for security issues, security problems. Since they're native code that run inside the browser, they're easily exploited, and exploded too sometimes. And what's happening now or the handwriting on the wall is that support for plugins is going to be, for instance, in the new Microsoft browser called Edge, they've completely dropped support for ActiveX controls. So we see the handwriting on the wall, and but the result has been that organizations are reluctant to embrace the ActiveX Cgm plugin. It has meant that the plugins, in many cases, have to be accredited to run on a company's IT system, costing time and money for someone, either the users or the vendor providing the product. And again, the security issue is a major consideration. So what are the alternatives? Well, recently SVG has emerged as a potential alternative to Cgm. SVG has the advantage that it doesn't require a plugin. It's native in HTML5 browsers. And similar to Cgm, it's a vector format, and capable of supporting raster images, just like Cgm. But unlike Cgm, it's based on XML, so that's surely a big advantage. So why not use SVG as an alternative format to Cgm? Well, the main reason is CGM profiles, and there are no profiles, for, industry profiles. For example, there are key industry profiles which define interchange rules and rules for usage of CGM. And the most well-known ones are S1000D and ATA. So that's a key feature that's missing with SVG profiles. Now, there is no issue with using SVGs in a general web environment. It's an excellent language. It's a rich graphics language. But using SVG in a compliant or specification compliant environment would require a similar option, i.e. a industry profile that could be approved and validated by respective organizations. SVG being based on XML has ability or capability to provide profiles. But this work would not be a quick process and would probably incur significant project and development costs. And this task would probably be governed or take place in the SVG working group, which is part of W3C, but it would have to have endorsement and collaboration from S1000D and ATA committees and CGM, maybe even CGM Open. So the big question is who would sponsor this work and fund a task? So Cgm versus SVG conclusion: in the near term, Cgm still seems to be the best option if you need to deliver compliant graphics files. Also, Cgm editing software is very capable of editing Cgm, and like I said, there are profiles that for governing the exchange of it, which is important. And in many cases, the Cgm editors will export SVG, so it's possible to for them to convert Cgm to SVG. But in the future, if SVG could be validated with an industry XML schema, then its adoption could be straightforward. But there's still the problem of the viewing technology, which is especially challenging for Cgm because of plugins. So time to look at new technologies. So the first part is going to be covering the status quo. So we're actually to the product launch where I'm going to get into the actual demo here. So I'm going to start with showing a plugin in Internet Explorer. Oops. Okay, so we all recognize that, Internet Explorer. For this part, I'm going to drag off my desktop a Cgm onto my Internet Explorer browser. And so voila, we have a Cgm. This is the VisXView plugin, VisXView ActiveX control inside Internet Explorer. As you can see, it's got hotspots, and we can zoom it, we can pan it. I mean, all the basic things in a viewer, and the other viewers, like GuidesForView, have similar functionality, and but you can see the quality is good. Now, for an analogy, let me show you what this could be if it was an SVG file, and I have here that same Cgm that you're looking at in SVG format. This was actually converted by our editor so that we could just see what it might look like if a Cgm file was in SVG format. So we can see it's got hotspots just like in the Cgm, and those could be linked. These hotspots can all be linked because SVG, you can get events and all that. And so that's it. I might just show you how you could, in the SVG or in the Internet Explorer, you can zoom them and pan them, but you don't have the control. There's no toolbar, of course, like there is with a plugin. Plugin has a toolbar, but when you're using the browser to view a raw SVG file, there's no really control. You can, of course, you can use the scroll bar here to control it. Now it would be possible to write an SVG viewer in JavaScript or something and enhance it with a toolbar, but just the browser out of the box viewing SVG doesn't give you much control. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. But again, the quality is good, and so there's some potential there. So now the big question, what is the ideal solution for displaying Cgm files? The SVG in HTML5 solution is attractive, no plugin technology is required, but what if the HTML5 can be utilized to display the Cgm format in a browser? Then we'd have an ideal solution, would we not? So how can this breakthrough technology be achieved? The solution, HTML5 and WebGL for the graphics. HTML5 is a framework, and JavaScript and WebGL can be employed. And that's what takes us to the next part of our demo. We're going to show you the new VisXView HTML5 solution. So let me reset my browser. Okay, so this is running from our website, but I'm going to now go and find the same Cgm that we opened up in the plugin. Okay, so you recognize that. That was the same Cgm that was viewed in the plugin, but now we can show you how we can browse it or zoom and pan it. We can see it's got hotspots, it's got screen tips just like in the plugin. So it's a fully functional Cgm viewer with all of the capabilities of zoom and pan. It's in an HTML5, so again, all of these callouts can be connected to links to navigate to other drawings. So that's the basic viewer. These files are being viewed off of my computer, but they could come from a URL. Now next I wanted to show, and this is a simple, what a typical Illustrative parts catalog might be. And what you're seeing there on the screen is it's a list of drawings or assemblies on the left. We have a toolbar. You might note that toolbar is bigger than the one on the other one, but that's because this viewer is in HTML5 and has style sheets, so it can be configured. And I think we did this one so we could put it on a tablet, like an iPad, and there we wanted the toolbar buttons to be a little bigger. So so let's pull up the Cgm. Okay, so there's a Cgm, and we're going to I'll zoom in on it. Of course, I can, the mouse wheel also works for zooming here, so that's nice. So we can see there's hotspots. Now in this particular application, they're actually links, so I'm going to click on a link there just to show we can do navigation. So that link happened to be linked to a manufacturer's directly to a supplier's website. So I'm going to go back though and look at this a little closer. Let's try some other Cgms. Again, this is another one. and one more, I think. That's a little more detail. But as you can see, the speed is good. I think you'll agree that it's equal to the browser or to the plugin, and good quality. So back to our slides. So that's the live demo part. Now you may be asking, when will this product be available? Well, the answer is it's available today. We can send you a link to this code, which is on our website. What you're seeing in this demo today is available today for testing. In other words, you can actually experiment with HTML5 and look at the HTMLs to see how this could be employed in your application. The initial release is what we're calling is more of a JavaScript software development toolkit with HTML5 examples, and the price for the toolkit and options are available on request. So let's summarize the benefits. It has full Cgm support. It handles Cgm, all of its elements, both binary encoding and clear text encoding, everything that's in the VisXView plugin, and it has fast rendering, quality rendering. Again, no plugin required, no installation required. It's easily accessible. The toolbar is configurable, stylable, and it's S1000D and ATA spec compliant. So we think, in summary, that the new technology will change the way Cgm files are displayed on the web and in interactive technical publications. The ActiveX plugin is no longer required. IT departments will be your friend. No installation required, no accreditation required, no security issues. So that takes us to our questions. I see we've already, I'm looking at the questions panel here, we've got quite a few. So let's start it off here. The first one is, I'm curious about support for CTX files, the text-based, clear text Cgm file format. Yes, it can take clear text. It'll take, Cgm has two formats, binary, which is the one that's approved for Exchange, but clear text is a readable Cgm, and it's handy for testing purposes especially. It does support that. The next question is, we're all just seeing the poll. We solved that one. Thank you for telling us that. Coming to S1000D user forum in San Diego, yes, we'll be there, and we'll be talking about this technology there. And it says, does the VisXView JS support printing? Yes, it's that's kind of comes along with the browser. The browser can, whatever you see on the screen or zoomed, that's supported. Next question is, does the viewer, the HTML5 viewer, support programmatically turning on layers on and off? Yes, this is a real good point. The HTML5 viewer is built on the web Cgm spec, so it follows the web Cgm DOM that's defined by web Cgm 2.1. It has a rich API for interacting with the application structures, GR objects, layers, all of that. So yeah, that's all in there. Next question. In other words, the JS scripts, JavaScript are doing the work. Yes, when you're seeing it view, it's actually running JavaScript code. Now it's compressed JavaScript code. It's not readable because you have to. It's quite a bit of code, but it's actually JavaScript is executing, making WebGL calls to do each graphic element. So yes, the answer is yes to that. Do you have a licensing option for where the number of users is unknown? Yes, we do. We have good licensing options. Yes. And does the JS viewer require internet access, such as for a call home licensing check, or can it run offline? Well, then that's a good question too. To load it, you have to load it from a server. Like in the demo, it's going to our web server and picking up a copy of the JavaScript library, but part of the licensing options that could be put on your server. But then there is a offline thing where you may want to run it offline, and that's a nice thing about HTML5. It has a metadata keyword called JavaScript. It's a manifest where you could put a manifest in the metadata saying that when it loads this JavaScript library, cache it permanently in your browser. And so that way you can run offline with the viewer. And the next question is, anybody using this yet? No. We have one of our OEM partners that's embedded the library in their product. I don't know what the level, the use of that is yet, but I think it's being used commercially. But it's ready for that, and it's actually gone through 6 months of testing. We've been amazed at the stability of it, speed of it. We've tested it with a lot of browsers, all of the browsers that I've shown you there. You know, Microsoft, of course, on Windows. We've tested Safari on Mac, OS X, iPads, iPhones. We've tested it in Chrome, on a couple of platforms, Android tablets. We've tested, anyway, we've been delighted with the support that we found in browsers. Some browsers, I might add, are speedier, like we found that Chrome was faster than Internet Explorer, which was interesting, but there could be a lot of variables in that, though, so don't draw any conclusions from that. Next question, is there an API for Hotspot Companion File Loading with some default UI like pan and zoom? The companion file, I don't believe is in this version, but it's the plan. We can easily add that. And there's no reason. All of the code that we have in our plugin is available to us in this viewer. Default UI like pan and zoom, yeah, our samples have some buttons, some little icons we ship with it that you can make your own pan and zoom or style it, or use your own buttons, or anything that's available in the HTML5 UI capabilities can be leveraged to make it your own look and feel. And the next question, what about XVF? Well, again, XVF is the companion file, and I think we already addressed that. First version doesn't have it, but can easily, will very soon do that, I'm sure. Next question, does the JavaScript viewer depend on any other third-party libraries that require licensing? No, it's totally self-contained. How does the performance for large graphics greater than 1 megabyte? Very good. I'm impressed. That was one of my concerns when we first started on it. It says, how can a JavaScript viewer be faster than a than a native code, but the performance is very good. Equal to, I should say, comparable. Next question is, will it support 3D animated ISO files? No, that's a proprietary. ISO is .iso. That's the ISO draws native format. It's proprietary. We'd like to, but I can say though, since it uses the WebCGM 2.1 spec for the API, there is some limited animation that's capable by applying transforms to parts of a CGM. So next question, does the JavaScript viewer zoom in and out by mouse wheel independently? Yes, I think I showed that in the demo, but it does zoom in and out with a mouse wheel, but you can, it was hooked up to the toolbar buttons to do it. We do it a couple of different ways, either with a drag a rectangle or click on a point to zoom up. Next question, does it handle composite CGM graphics including raster and vector? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The HTML5 rendering seemed to be a lower resolution plugin. Is this controllable? Yeah, you probably noticed there was a little difference in the line weights, and we're tweaking that. We're still, but it's there's no reason why it can't be. I think the size of my screen that I was using in this demo, but the same resolution is achievable in both. Next question, it supports programmatical selection of hotspots, question mark, using JavaScript, yes. In the JavaScript API, all of the highlighting is done by the user's JavaScript. In other words, you would have a bit of JavaScript. In other words, you'd get an event from the JavaScript viewer that tells you you're over hotspot, and then you likewise come back and say at that ID you want to highlight it. So yes, it uses JavaScript. And again, we had a companion file question. Doesn't load companion files. I think we've addressed that. It presently doesn't, but will. So do you have a licensing option allows a viewer to be embedded in run from CD? I can see no reason why that. I think I addressed in one of the questions how you can, using HTML5 manifest, you can, the viewer or the browser will cache it permanently, so it could run, yeah, it could run offline. That might need a little more investigation, but right off the top of my head, I'd see no problem with that. And it says, will you add anti-aliasing to give you less jagged looking lines? Yeah, I think we'll need to address that. I've noticed that too. It does look a little, there is a, OpenGL and WebGL doesn't have anti-aliasing language, but I think that, I'm sure that's coming. And we have another question, does it support composite raster vector graphics? Yes, absolutely. Next question, can the JavaScript viewer support more than one CGM on the same page? No, that's sometimes that's called yeah, compositing, where you put up one and then you layer another one on top of it. The old active CGM standard used to do something like that, and but that's currently not in the capability. Someone says, I've joined late and missed part of the presentation. Have you talked about a licensing model? I think those are kind of things we'll have to talk more online, like who pays is available to integrators and users, the licensing. but all of that is achievable. Next question, does it support Web CGM and the CGM DOM? Yes, it does. It's almost identical to the Web CGM spec and the Web CGM DOM when you're using it in a web plugin. There's a little bit of syntactical difference the way you instance it. In other words, when you the plugin you instance it with an object tag, whereas in the JavaScript viewer you have to have a little bit of analogous code to instance the viewer, but it's very similar. Okay, next question. Can you layer CGM like Active CGM used to allow? Well, Web CGM allows layers, but it's different than the Active CGM. So you can achieve the same thing with Web CGM and layers, but they have to be, some of our, for instance, like our editor will read Active CGM directly now and make it into, when you save it, make it into a Web CGM, and then the information is available as layers there. So there's things you can do, but there may be some conversion issues. And the next one is, are any 3D model file formats supported? Well, I think that's another subject. I think no, there's no 3D in this viewer. The next question: how long took the development? How many viewers? Well, I can say it probably took us probably a year and a half. I couldn't say right off how many developers were involved in that, at least a couple. And next question is, can multiple layers be loaded by loading multiple CGMs to create a composite? No, there's presently no capability to do that. Next question, how can you be sure it won't be treated like a plugin by the IT departments? I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it's certainly, you don't have to install it, so that's one big difference. So since it doesn't require any installation, it's no different than running any web page. When you're using the viewer, it's no different than using any other JavaScript library. For instance, almost every page in the world today uses jQuery, which is a JavaScript library. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's any need for accreditation of that. So that's all I could say on that. We could maybe talk more offline on that. That's a good question, though. Next question, can the JavaScript viewer support more than one CGM on the same page side by side? Yes, I think, well, in that demo I showed how I was running under two tabs, but it may be different. I think you're talking about like putting a CGM in two divs or something. That one I'll have to get back to you on. I'm not sure. Next question, can view multiple instances of the viewer on the same web page? Yes. I mean, in different tabs you certainly can, and I would think you could put multiple instances, but I think that's similar to the previous question, and that one I'll have to research more, so I'll get back to you on that. So does this convert CGM to SVG or something other format that is compatible with HTML5 Canvas? No, it does not convert to SVG. The JavaScript code reads and parses the CGM and renders all the elements by making JavaScript calls to the WebGL library, which is different. That's one of the keys, and that makes it very fast. So I think that's it. That's it for questions. They're really great questions. Let's move on to wrapping this up. Thank you for attending. We're going to have supporting information showing there on the slide. We're going to put this all will be available on SlideShare. We have some upcoming Larson events, a new informational webinar on August 19th with more details to follow. And again, we're going to excuse me, be at the S1000D user forums in San Diego, so we hope to visit with you there. So thank you all for attending, and that concludes our presentation today.